versus Martin MacNeill. He is present with his counsel. The state's attorneys are present. We are outside the presence of the jury. Anything housekeeping this morning before we begin?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
Is the inmate up? Inmate 1? Okay. And you'll continue cross then? All right. Let's have him brought up and we'll bring the jury in. You may. Yeah. Sir, if you'll be seated here, please.
All rise with the jury.
Good morning. Thank you. Please be seated. We'll go on the record in the matter of State of Utah versus Martin MacNeill. Mr. MacNeill is present with his counsel. The state's attorneys are present. The jury is now seated. Inmate 1 is on the stand. You remain under oath. You've taken the oath yesterday, and that applies to you today as well. You may continue your cross-examination.
Good morning. When we concluded yesterday, we were just about to talk about a phone call on August 17th of 2013. Do you see that call there with Jeff Robinson?
Yes.
And if you turn over to, well, maybe at the beginning of the call, you expressed your concerns about the trial being televised, correct? And then if you turn over to the next page, on page 11, and there on line 460, Investigator Robinson told you that what I really want is to get you out before, and I just wish we could do that somehow, some way. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And then down below on line 489, he further told you that you really are one of my absolute key witnesses. So it's really important to us to make sure that you're taken care of and kept safe, and I just want to make sure that your needs are taken care of, right? That's what you understood?
Yes.
If you turn over to page 12, and if you look down on line 528, you and Investigator Robinson were having a discussion about him calling your lawyers, correct? And he's calling your lawyers about the possibility of you getting some reduction in your sentence in light of your cooperation, correct?
That doesn't say that anywhere.
That was the intent of you asking him to call your lawyers, right?
No, that's just to advise my lawyers, will it be on TV and whatnot? If you had that conversation, then you will see it from my lawyer.
And so you didn't have any intent of having him talk to your lawyers about getting a
This
reduction?
conversation was about it being on television.
Okay. And what he says here is that, yes, in fact, you've asked me to call them. I wrote the name down, and then I promptly lost it, and this is Investigator Robinson speaking, right? I wrote the name down, and then I promptly lost it, and I was feeling bad about that. No, so if they call me, I would be thrilled to call them, or I would be happy to call them too, right? That's what he told you.
Yes.
When was the conversation that you had with him before this, when you asked him to call your lawyers the first time?
I'm not sure. It was sometime before it.
So that would have been, maybe, was that one of the calls that was in your counselor's office that wouldn't have been recorded?
No, it was only one conversation to my counselor's office.
And could it have been that
And
one?
that was the one that he called me. You have transcript on it.
Mm-hmm. And so this indicates that there was some time previously that you had asked him to call your lawyers, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so do you know when that was?
I'm not exactly sure when. It was probably maybe a couple of weeks before this phone call right here.
Okay, so one that we haven't gone over. And,
Yes.
Right? And so we don't have a record of all of the calls that you had with Investigator Robinson.
That's the only other call.
Okay. And then down in line 537, you give Investigator Robinson your attorney's phone number again, right?
Yes.
And if you turn over on page 13, and top of the page, Investigator Robinson says that he'll call your attorney or the investigator, Steve, right?
Yes.
And then turn over to page 14. And this is your conversation with Investigator Robinson continuing, right?
Yes.
And you're talking about email, correct?
Yes.
And you're talking to Investigator Robinson about the email system that you have access to.
Yes.
Right. And you tell Investigator Robinson on line 601, you say, yeah, I wouldn't talk too much on there, right? Mm-hmm. Referring, you're asking Investigator Robinson not to say too much on the email, right?
No, I'm referring to I wouldn't talk too much because other inmates can see the email that I'm talking about.
Okay. And so then Investigator Robinson says, okay, yeah, typically, the defense has asked for all of my emails and things like that, so I'd much rather talk on the phone than send an email, mm-hmm. right? So Investigator Robinson was wanting to talk to you in a way that the defense would not likely learn about it, right?
I guess so.
And then below that, you and Investigator Robinson talk about a system so that he could just send you an email and say, hi, how you doing? And then you'll know to call him, right?
Yes.
And then down, the next phone conversation is also on August 17th with your mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you indicate to your mother that, well, down on line 634, Well, maybe you got to start up at 6:15. You indicate that your mother, that you talked to Utah today, is what you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was referring to Investigator Robinson, correct?
Yes.
And then down on line 634, you tell your mother, but he's just basically told me, and that he's, that's Utah? Investigator Robinson you're referring to?
Which line, Randy, was that?
634? You say, but he's just basically told me, and I talked to my lawyer the other day too.
I think I'm talking about the investigator. I'm not sure though.
Okay. So, at any rate, what you told your mother is that, but he's just basically told me, and I talked to my lawyer the other day too, and they were like, you know, it'll be contingent on how key of a person you are. And when you say it'll be contingent, you're talking about the amount of consideration you may get on your federal sentence, right?
Possibly.
And the amount of consideration you may get on your federal sentence will be contingent on how key of a person you are in testifying in the case.
Yes.
In the Utah case, right? And then you go on and you say, and I was talking to Jeff, and Jeff was like, you're my number one, right?
Yes.
So you're believing that you're a very key person at that time, right?
I guess so.
And you're believing that because you're a very key person, that's going to lead to you getting substantial consideration in relation to your
At
federal
that time,
sentence.
I thought so.
Okay. And then on page 15, you and your mother have a discussion about Gypsy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your mother suggesting that she's the key person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you say, no, you don't think she is, right? And then you go on again to say that...
It's under that it says, I don't know.
yeah,
Under
you say,
that,
I don't
it says,
think
we'll
she
see.
is.
I don't think she is. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
right? And then you go on to say, yeah, but he was like, you're my number one. I want to make sure you're comfortable. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the investigator told you that he wants to make sure you're comfortable.
Yes.
Right?
Objection foundation as far as investigator.
Overruled. I think it's in reference to Detective Robinson. It's been established.
And then down on line 661, again, you say, he told me I was his number one, and my lawyer and them was like, you know, according to, you know, how much you know, how good of a key person I am for him, that would decide how much, you know, downstroke I got off. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you said? And then down on lines 667 to 670, you go on to say, they were like, you know, and then he told me, he said, because of the amount of time I have left, he said, I shouldn't even look back. You know what I mean? He said, that's the deal, you know. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And 672, take care of all that for me, so he said. Right?
Yes.
Then turn over to page 16. And it's a phone conference with on August 18th with you and an unidentified woman.
Mm-hmm.
You called a number of girlfriends while you were in custody, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I need you to answer yes or no for the record. Was
Yes.
that a yes? Was that a yes?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And so in this phone call on August 18th of 2013, you asked this woman, so what are we going to have for Christmas dinner, correct?
Yes.
And she says, why, you coming home? And you answered yes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
And you believed you were coming home in relation to Operation Utah, right?
No.
No?
Like I said, I have a motion in the courts.
Yeah.
That's what I'm banking on to come
Plan
home.
A and Plan B, right?
Whatever you say.
Well, that's what you said, right? You're the one that designated them Plan A and Plan B, right?
Yes.
And then down further in that same phone call, you say, that is my deadline, Christmas. You heard me, right?
Yes.
And then you go on to say, I'm trying to be there, this shit about to go down, right?
Yes.
And then you say, between October the 5th and November the 5th, Jeff will be coming to get me. Then after I get through with Jeff, it'll only be a matter of, a couple of weeks, maybe a month, right?
Yes.
So when you said that you were coming home, you were referring to Operation Utah, right?
Like I said, at that time, I had the motion in, and this was going on. At this time, I didn't know that I wouldn't get anything for coming here.
Well, in relation to your conversation with the girlfriend, you didn't say anything about the motion, right?
I said that, yes, I had in previous conversations.
Well, in this one, you're talking about Operation Utah, right?
Yes, I am.
And then down on line 719, well, it started on 717, you go on, yes, this shit is about to be over with. Yes, my lawyer confirmed it for me Friday. Well, I talked to, and then again, I talked to Jeff yesterday, right?
Yes.
So again, you're thinking that, that testifying against Mr. MacNeill is going to get you home, right?
Possibly at that time. That was in August, though.
Mm-hmm. And then just a little further down on line 722, again in this conversation with the same woman, if he says you're the key witness or if you're this or that, and I say, yeah, and then I asked Jeff yesterday and Jeff was like, you're my number one guy, right?
Yes.
So then if you turn over to page 17, and then here's where you reference the motion to a degree, right?
Yes.
The woman says, so what about the crack law? I thought you was getting out for that, right?
Yes.
And then you say, man, I don't know which one is going to be first, so I don't know. Whichever one's first, I don't care. If that comes first, then I ain't going to Utah, is what you said, right?
Yes.
So you're just planning to get out one way or the other, right?
I had so many mixed feelings about coming here. At that time, I hadn't fully made up my mind that I would come.
Mm-hmm. You were going to do whatever you needed to do to get out, was your intentions, right?
Not whatever, no.
Then next there's a phone conversation with the investigator on August 19th, with the investigator for your lawyer, Steve, right?
Yes.
On August 19th. And then if you look down on line 768, and he tells you, but if this is a high-profile case, which it definitely appears to me that it is, then they may be willing to do something, and like I say, Beth's checking into that, right?
Yes.
And if you turn over to page 18, on August 19th, you have another conversation with a woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you tell her, well, I'm shooting, I don't know for sure, I got a lot of stuff going on, but I'm shooting to be under your Christmas tree, right?
Yes.
And then you say, yeah, I'm trying. I got several irons in the fire, and hopefully something's going to shake, is what you
Yes.
say, right? Then on August 20th, you have another phone conversation with Raven, right?
Yes.
And you say that you talked to Jeff on Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you say he's talking good, right?
Yes.
And then Raven asks you, so he said they would be able to help, though, for your help, right?
Yes.
And you said, yeah, but I'm waiting to make sure what my lawyer says, right? So at that time, you had an understanding that, that Investigator Robinson was going to help you for your help, right?
Yes, he said he would do what he could for me, but he really couldn't do anything because this was a state case and I'm a federal inmate.
Yeah, but you had just explained in talking with your lawyer and phone calls a few days ago that under Rule 35, they were seeking to get consideration to
That's
reduce
for
your
federal
sentence.
cases.
Right. Well, they told you that they thought they could do it for
They
your
said
substantial
possibly.
cooperation. Okay. Okay. And then in line 809, you say he's going to do whatever he got to do, but you know it's still really up to the United States prosecutor,
Yes.
right? And so the he's that's Investigator Robinson. Right?
Yes.
So Investigator Robinson's going to do whatever he got to do, but you know it's still really up to the United States prosecutor, is what you were saying.
Yes.
Right? And then line 814, you say, my lawyer's going to talk to them and make sure, but they were like, since this is a very high-profile thing, most likely it will be all good,
Yes.
right? And if you turn over the page to 19, you have a phone conversation with your mother, right?
Yes.
And on line 834, you tell your mother, and this is an August 22nd phone call, right?
Yes.
And you tell your mother, yeah, I talked to Jeff Saturday, right?
Yes.
And your mother says on line 837, I didn't know Jeff was open on Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you say, Jeff's open anytime I need him open, right?
Yes.
And then you say, yeah, that's his cell phone, right?
Yes.
Then line 844 or 842, you say you can call him anytime, right?
Yes.
Line 844, you say I'm his number one guy, right?
Yes.
Line 852, again, you say, but I'm his number one guy, right?
Yes.
Then line 862, you again say, because it's on the U.S. attorney, it's up to him, but, you know, my lawyer seems to think that it's big enough to, you know, it is what it is, right?
Yes.
And so while everything is ultimately up to the U.S. attorney, you're believing that you being the number one guy has got a good chance of helping you get home, right?
It was a possibility, yes.
You also sent some email, as we discussed back and forth with Investigator Robinson, right?
Yes.
As well as with your mother,
Yes.
right?
You may.
I'm showing you what appears to be an email dated August 15th of 2013.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? And this is an email from your mother to you, right?
Yes.
And she says, change in location will do that. Listen up. Jane Velez Mitchell comes on here at 6 in the evening just before Nancy Grace on HLN. She had on a very interesting, in capitalization, case this evening. It will be continued tomorrow. You really need to watch it. Love you.
Mm-hmm.
She was referring to the Martin MacNeill case, right?
Yes.
Good.
Mr. Buchanan, I'm showing you another email that's dated August 17th. I'm sorry, your email is August 16th, 2013. Do you see that at the bottom?
Yes.
And this is to Raven?
Yes.
And you tell her, okay, so I talked with my lawyer, and they did say that after it is over, I should be coming home. So don't tell Mom and them because the surprise is on. Right?
Yes.
And so your understanding then is that whether you get consideration or not really won't be determined until after this is all over, right?
No.
That's what it was then, right?
I mean, after it's over means after I'm done doing whatever I do, not when the case is over.
So when you say, I talked with my lawyer, and they did say that after it is over, I should be coming home, you weren't referring to the trial being over?
No, after I testify.
Oh, okay. So after your testimony is over,
Yes.
is what you're saying you should be coming home?
Like I said, that was in August. That was, before August. That was before I found out that I couldn't.
Well, even now, there's no finality on whether you get consideration or not until after your testimony is over and your lawyers can submit the final product, right?
My understanding that was my last conversation with them that it probably wouldn't go through.
Probably won't go through, but it depends upon your testimony, right?
No.
And can't be determined until after you're done testifying, right?
No, they just told me that it probably wouldn't go through.
Okay. And that was a recent conversation?
That was a letter that I received.
Well, okay.
You may.
So I'm showing you now an email that you received from Investigator Robinson on August 30th of 2013, right?
Yes.
And in the last sentence there, he indicates, so you know I have not heard from the defender's office or investigator, right?
Yes.
And then says, I will try and contact them on Monday,
Yes.
right? And that's August 30th.
Yes.
You've been involved in the system for quite some time, right?
Yes.
And you understand that that after you give strike that. You understand that if you give false testimony in court today, that you could be charged with perjury, right?
Yes.
You understand that if you were to give false information to a police officer, you could be charged with a crime in relation to that as well.
Yes.
Right? And so if you were to testify in court today differently than the way you gave information to the police officer back in May, you could be charged with a crime for that as well,
Yes.
right? So you have a motivation to testify consistently today with what you said in May, right?
I mean, what was supposedly said in May?
That was when you gave your first interview to the
Okay.
investigators, right?
Yes.
And from May, in May, as we discussed, you sent that very first email to Raven about the possibility of you testifying against Mr. MacNeill, right?
Yes.
And in that email, you expressed the hope that would lead to you coming home.
Yes.
And in all of the phone calls, the ones that we have been able to get, you continue to express your hope that would lead to you coming home.
Yes.
Right. And you've testified today that you've had a recent letter from your attorney that probably won't happen, but you won't know for sure until after it's all done, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. You may redirect.
What is your motivation for being here today?
I'm being honest. Yes, at first, it was a motivation for me to possibly get out, but the bigger motivation was that, I mean, it's wrong. I mean, certain things that you do in prison are acceptable. Certain things are not, and something like this is something that we view as not acceptable. And it just
What's not acceptable?
a murder is not acceptable. Sex crimes are not acceptable, things like that. So it was on me to come forward. And yes, in the back of my mind, maybe I could get a time cut, but that wasn't my motivation. My motivation was just to do the right thing. And like I said, if something were to happen to my family like that, I would want someone to step forward too.
If you were to benefit from giving testimony, would you turn it down or would you accept it?
I would accept it. I'm not going to lie.
Okay. You were asked about an email where your mom referred to you to a Jane Velez Mitchell
Yes.
TV program that appears on HLN before Nancy Grace.
Yes.
Did you watch that program?
No.
What's changed about your belief in getting a deal then? You talked about a letter a little bit.
Just that usually when it's a state case, the federal prosecutors won't bear down on it unless it's something that happened in my area where I'm from and in relation to something that they're looking for.
And you're from where again?
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Yes.
Are you willing to lie, commit perjury, or obstruct justice to get a deal?
No.
Okay.
I only have 2 years left. That's nothing compared to what I've already done.
You've done how much time, sir?
About 7 years.
About 7 years. You indicated you had mixed feelings about coming to Utah
Yes.
to testify. Why? Why the mixed feelings?
The security, my security when I go back,
Okay. Tell us about that.
there are things that can happen to you.
Like what?
You can get beat up. You can possibly get killed. You can get stabbed. You can get burned. It's the number of things that can happen to you.
And is that because you might be labeled a snitch?
Yes.
That's on your mind in coming here to Utah?
Yes.
You're here nonetheless,
Yes.
testifying. These phone calls that counsel has referred to you all took place in August.
Yes.
And your statement to Investigator Robinson was May 29th, 2013, correct?
Yes.
Do you now expect to be home for Christmas?
There's still a possibility.
Tell us about this. You mentioned that you have a motion in before the, I believe, the
Yes.
6th
My motion
Circuit.
was put in court in May.
It's an 18-to-1 ratio?
Yes.
Scenario? What is that?
There was a disparity between powder and crack cocaine, and they lowered this. It was a 100-to-1 ratio, and they lowered it down to 18-to-1 ratio, but they were not giving it retroactively. And in the case that I cited to get back in court, they gave the 18-to-1 ratio to an individual, so then it would apply to everyone in the 6th Circuit first. But after they put my motion in, they're reviewing the case again. And like I said, I just got a letter from my lawyer recently saying that they're still reviewing it and that the good decision hopefully will stick.
So you may get out on this 18-to-1 ratio motion?
Yes, sir.
And that was because your underlying crime was crack?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You indicate that in some of the emails you talked about how you're a key witness in this case. Why are you a key witness?
Because he told me
He told you what?
that he killed his wife.
That he drugged her up with oxys and sleeping pills
Yes, sir.
and then drowned her?
Yes, sir.
In some of the conversations on the phone, you expressed worry about being on TV.
Yes.
Tell us about that worry.
Because I have to go back to prison.
Have you struck any deal with Investigator Robinson for your testimony?
No.
Have you struck any deal with state prosecutors for your testimony?
No.
Have you struck any deal with a federal prosecutor for your testimony?
No.
In your emails, you talk about there, back in August, it's on the U.S. Attorney
Yes,
if you
sir.
were to get anything. You indicate that that's still possible?
Yes, it is still possible.
What do you best recall about this letter that you received indicating that it probably wouldn't happen?
She just told me to look forward to the Blewett case. You know, that things look good. That's the name of the case that I'm going back on.
That's the 18-to-1 ratio?
Yes.
What about getting something in exchange for your testimony in this state case?
She said she didn't know.
Okay. Just a moment, Your Honor. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Sir, I'm handing you a document that shows 4 individuals labeled inmates 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do you know any of those people?
I know inmate number 1.
Okay, who's that?
That's me.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. What about inmates 2, 3, and 4?
No, sir.
Okay. Can you tell us about your housing in Utah County? Are you housed with inmates from Utah County right now?
Yes, sir.
From the local jurisdiction?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you talked with any other inmates about your testimony, what you were going to say today?
They don't know why I'm here.
Have you tried to keep quiet about why you're here?
Yes.
And why is that?
I just want to be safe.
Okay.
It's just, you know, it's a risk.
Have you attempted to stay away from any media on this case?
Yes.
And you indicated that to your mom in one of your phone conversations,
Yes.
that you didn't want to watch media.
Yes.
You didn't want your mind clouded, your memory clouded.
Yes.
Okay. Yesterday, Mr. Spencer approached you with a laptop computer.
Yes.
And referred you to 2 articles, apparently about MacNeill.
Yes.
Had you read those articles?
No.
Was that the first time you ever saw those?
Yes.
Okay. You getting paid to be here today, sir?
No.
You indicated in your testimony today on yesterday on cross-examination that the defendant said he helped her out.
Yes.
What did that mean when
That
you said that?
That's sustained.
Okay. You telling the truth today, sir?
Yes, sir.
Do you expect to return home soon or back to Beaumont, Texas?
Yes, sir.
And that's a federal penitentiary,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And when is your expected release right now?
January of 2016.
You look forward to that day?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any recross?
So as I understood your testimony yesterday, it would have been in December of 2010 and then perhaps in the early part of 2011 that you had these alleged conversations with Mr. MacNeill?
No.
No?
No.
When was it?
It was between July of 2010 and December of 2010.
It was between July
Yes.
of 2010 and December of 2010?
Yes.
Okay, but you said yesterday that that the conversation began after the Nancy Grace show
Yes.
aired, right?
Yes.
And so if that aired on December 7th of 2010, you don't think that that had anything to do with when you had these alleged conversations?
No, because I was in special housing in December 16th of 2010 until March of 2011 when I was transferred.
Okay. Whether the calls were, whenever the calls were, whether they were in, or not the calls, excuse me, whenever the conversations allegedly were, whether they were in 2010 or 2011, you didn't say anything about those to any authorities until May of 2013.
Yes.
Right? And so even though murder is not acceptable, you didn't say anything until May, when you had a hope that that information would get you out of prison, right?
Yes, I guess.
That's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
When you came forward in May of this year, do you remember what the circumstances were? What did
Yes.
you learn?
That he was incarcerated, and
When you say he, you mean?
Mr. MacNeill was incarcerated and was awaiting trial for the murder.
And that was from Bruce Richardson.
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further, Judge.
Do you have questions for this witness? Counsel, will you approach? One question from the jury. Are you worried about other inmates recognizing your voice on television?
Yes.
Do you have follow-up questions?
Why are you worried about that, sir?
There was so much information that I gave in the testimony that anybody that's at the prison that I'm at right now can figure out that it's me on the stand.
Facing that risk, are you aware of what's going to happen to you when you're transferred back?
Yes.
Your Honor, that's speculation.
Sustained.
If he's aware?
Yeah. You can rephrase.
Do you know what's going to happen to you with the risk you face going back
Same
to
objection, Your
Beaumont?
Honor.
Yeah. Sustained as to speculation.
Maybe I can. With respect to where you'll be placed in going back to Beaumont in prison, do you know what's going to happen to you in going back?
Same objection, Your Honor. It's speculation, and it's also treading on areas that have already been asked and answered.
Sustained as to speculation. You can't predict the future. Anything else? You may step down. Thank you very much. Next witness.
State recalls Gypsy Willis.
If you'll come forward here to the clerk's desk, please raise your right hand and be sworn.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in the case shall be in full support of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you. Please be seated here and respond to counsel's questions.
Morning.
Morning.
For the record, will you restate your name and spell your last name?
Gypsy Jill Willis, last name Willis, Willis.
Ms. Willis, we've been moving chronologically through this case, so I'm going to go back to the point where we ended with you previously.
Okay.
And I think we stopped around the time that the defendant proposed to you in Wyoming.
Okay.
You remember talking about that?
Yes.
And I asked you, I believe, if the two of you ended up getting married. And what was your answer to that?
We did not get married.
What happened with your relationship around that time?
Around the time that we were engaged,
Uh-huh.
it just continued as it had been.
Okay, so you continued living together.
Yes.
You continued holding yourself out as husband and wife.
I believe so.
Did you get a marriage license?
We did get a marriage license. We didn't actually get married, though.
Okay. Let's move ahead a little bit to the year 2008. In 2008, did the two of you continue to live together?
Yes.
And you continued to hold yourself out as husband and wife?
Yes.
And you also held yourself out as Jillian MacNeill?
Yes.
And we have an exhibit wherein you applied for a military ID with that name
Yes.
based on direction from defendant.
Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm sorry.
Let's move to the year 2009. At the beginning of the year 2009, the two of you continued to live together.
Yes. I mean, very shortly after 2009, we were indicted and separated.
And you were arrested, correct?
Well, yeah.
Okay. And when you were arrested, you were taken into federal custody, and later you pleaded guilty, and you were sentenced by Judge Benson. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you remember your sentencing with Judge Benson?
A little, yeah. It's been a long time.
Okay. Do you remember what you said to Judge Benson as it related to your relationship with the defendant?
I said that we had ended our relationship.
Was that true?
It's true. I had not had any contact with him since I had been arrested.
Okay, but was your relationship really over?
At that point, it was. We had no contact. There was no anticipated contact.
So you didn't have a relationship after that?
After that, he wrote to me while I was in jail, yes.
Okay, so he wrote to you,
Well, we wrote back and forth, yes.
and you wrote to him.
Yeah.
And you referred to each other with terms of endearment and such.
Prison is a very
Sweetie,
lonely
love.
place.
Well, the question is, you would call each other terms of endearment, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask for permission to move about the courtroom as it relates to exhibits with this
Well,
witness.
you may approach. Go ahead. You may.
Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And what is it?
This is a letter that Martin wrote to me, I believe. It's got his handwriting.
Okay, and what was the date on that?
This was October 1st of 2009.
Okay. Do you remember the date that you were sentenced by Judge Benson?
I think it was the 1st of September.
Okay, so this was after that.
Yes.
Okay. And how does he address it to you,
Dear sweetheart.
dear sweet? And what does he say in that line right there?
I have informed them here that you are my common law wife.
Okay, so here he's telling you that he's told other officials that you are his common law wife.
Yeah.
And didn't he send you an affidavit to hold yourself out as his common law wife?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
We've been living together for a couple of years.
Sure. And you held each other out as husband and wife?
Yes.
So this was in line with that?
Yeah.
Correct. And he told you that you put money on your books, correct?
That he has not put money on your books.
Okay, but he did end up putting money on your books, correct? At different times?
Yeah.
Will you read this line he wrote to you right there?
Yes.
Same letter?
Yes.
The only reason I do anything is because I want to be as good as I can be when I get out of here, so you will still feel the same about me.
Okay. And will you read this line as well?
I love you and miss you more than you can imagine.
Okay, so he's continuing to say that you guys are going to have a relationship later, correct?
He's saying he wants to,
Okay.
certainly.
Was that reciprocated by you?
At the time, I had lost most of my friends and all of my family. I wanted to be in contact with anyone I could be, yes.
And you did reciprocate his feelings?
I did.
Okay.
I want him to write it back to me.
Do you recognize this one?
It's in his handwriting, October 9th.
Okay, so this is a week out, just over a week after the last one. Will you read that first part?
Dearest love, today I received your letter of October 4th and was thrilled to hear from you. It was the first letter or direct communication in 9 months. And even though I was always glad.
Yeah, well, that's fine right there.
Oh, okay.
So in other words, he had received a letter from you,
The first letter in 9 months, yes.
and he was happy to receive that from you.
He was.
And in that letter, you didn't tell him that your relationship was over like you had told Judge Benson, correct?
I don't remember.
Will you read this one?
Just this excerpt. I don't see a date
Yeah,
or
just-
anything.
We're in the same letter.
Do you now think that you want to settle here? I don't mind settling in Texas or anywhere else you might want. If Texas, what city?
Okay, so he's talking about future plans with you here, correct?
I mean, maybe. He says he has some questions for me. It's been a long time.
Sure, I understand. Do you recognize these letters though, correct?
I recognize the handwriting, the
Do you
specifics.
still have these letters?
I don't know if I have this one. I have some.
You've saved letters.
I have them in a box in the
Okay,
garage.
So okay. That was my question. You saved some of these letters.
I've saved everything from Texas, yeah.
Okay.
It's-
What does he say right here?
I love you, sweetheart, and we'll write again soon.
Okay, moving on. Tell us, is this his handwriting again?
Yes.
And what date is this?
November 3rd, 2009.
And how is it addressed to you?
Dearest love,
Okay. Thank you.
this was 2 years after she passed away.
I'll ask questions, thanks. Will you read this for me, please?
I weighed myself and found that I had gained weight in jail. I was surprised but not shocked. So again, I'm dieting and exercising, so you will not have to you will not have to expect a hefty husband when this is over.
Okay. Again, alluding to future plans.
Is that a question? I need an answer.
Yes.
Okay, will you read this
Thank
one?
you.
I'm gonna skip this, but will you read that?
I wish I could sleep for the next 20 months and do nothing but dream of being with you. I love you with all of my heart and think of nothing but a future with the two of us, never to be separated again.
Here's another one. What's the date on this one?
November 9th, 2009.
And how is it addressed?
Dearest love.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you to read this out loud, but will you just review this paragraph for me?
Okay.
What is he talking about to you in that paragraph?
He's talking about a vehicle.
And about giving you this car and that the car is yours, correct?
He said the car's mine, yeah.
Okay. Will you read that line?
It really is a combination of small things that makes me realize how much I miss you and how much I love you.
With this one, I also don't want you to read this out loud, but just read this paragraph and then I'll ask you about it. Okay, so in that paragraph, he's explaining to you that he's putting money on your books, correct?
Yes.
And he did in fact do that.
Yes.
Read that line.
Know that I love you and have loved you from the day we met. I will work hard to keep your love for me.
So he said he loved you from the day he met you, correct?
Yes.
Here's another one. What's the date on that one?
November 12th, 2009.
Okay, will you read that highlighted portion?
Dearest one, your letter arrived today and I was so damn happy to hear from you. I have waited every day since I heard it was coming on pins and needles. It was all that I hoped for and what I needed.
Okay. Do you remember the content of your letters to the defendant around this time?
Basic content, maybe.
Did you ever tell him it was over, the relationship was over in any of those letters?
I was so lonely. I was thrilled out of my mind to get a letter.
Okay, I can understand that, but my question is, did you ever tell him it was over?
I did not.
Okay. You don't have to read this out loud, but again, he's talking to you about putting money on your books, correct?
Yes.
Would you read the highlighted portion next? And it actually goes into this page.
As far as giving up on you, how silly. I thought you had given up on me. Remember, I love you more than you love me. As far as common law marriage, why don't we just get married for real?
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Thank you. So, sorry. Based on this, he's answering your query as to giving up on him, correct? As far as me giving up on you, how silly.
Yes.
You were concerned he might give up on you.
I must have made a comment to that effect.
Will you read that one at the bottom?
Stop worrying about anything to do with me abandoning you. It is not going to happen.
Will you read that one?
I love you and miss you every minute.
And this one?
I can think of nothing but how wonderful you are.
Okay, this one's a little harder to read, but can you tell who that is from?
Looks like Martin's letter.
And what's the date on that?
November 14th, 2008.
Okay. And that date is probably wrong, correct?
I don't know. What do you mean? Why is it probably wrong?
Because it says 2008. Wouldn't it
Oh.
have been 2009?
Unless you wrote me a letter in 2008. Let me read. Yes, I think this is an incorrect
It would have
date.
been 2009, correct?
It could
Could
have
you read
been.
that line for me?
You cannot imagine how your letters make me feel.
What's the date on this letter?
11/15/2009.
And this is a letter again from the defendant.
Yes.
Will you read that highlighted portion?
You are worth everything I go through to. You are worth everything I go through to get you back in my life.
Here's the next one. What is the date on this one?
November 17th, 2009.
And how is it addressed?
Dear sweetheart,
Okay. Will you read this line right here?
I have signed up for the A+ computer technician course.
Okay, so he told you he signed up for a computer technician course called the A+ one? Okay.
Yes.
Would you read that line?
Your second letter was just what I needed on a day when I was more lonely than usual.
Read that one.
I have enclosed a common law statement that I have created. Hopefully, it will do the trick. But if not, let's get married and shut these people up once and for all.
You related previously that sometimes his handwriting was like Sanskrit,
Yeah, I did.
so sometimes it's hard to read.
It is.
But this is talking about a common law marriage statement, correct?
Yes.
Okay, here's another one. And again, how is this addressed?
Dearest love,
And what's the date?
November 24th, 2009.
Okay, I'm not going to have you read that line. Out loud. I'm just going to have you read it to yourself, okay?
Okay.
What is, in this statement, the defendant is telling you that whatever he has is yours too. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. recognize this, Miss Willis?
Yes.
And what is it?
This is an envelope from me to Carol Smith.
And who is Carol Smith?
Carol Smith is a person that would forward my letters to Martin.
So she was kind of a go-between so that you could write the defendant, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this is in fact a letter you wrote him, correct?
I believe so.
And how did you address him?
Love.
I'm not going to ask you about that. Will you read from that word right there to here for me? Not out loud, you can read it
Oh,
yourself.
okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Do you understand the context of what you're saying here?
Yes.
Okay. And will you read this line that's highlighted? Correct.
We can worry about it all later or closer to when I see you.
Okay. So you're talking about future plans together, correct?
Yes.
And here you remark, "You are so sweet to send me money," acknowledging the money he sent you.
Yes.
I want you to read this line out loud.
Just a moment. Okay.
Go ahead and read it.
I said, babe, be very careful with what you describe in your mail.
You told him to be very careful about what he says in his mail, correct?
Because I didn't want to have any problem with
I'm
the
just asking yes or no.
prison. Yes.
You read this line right there.
I hope you know that I love you and I think about you all the time.
Okay. So this is the reciprocity I was asking you about. You were not telling the defendant it was over. You were continuing.
I was encouraging the mail. Yes.
Yeah.
I was lonely and it was wonderful to have some kind of support.
And here again you say, "Know that I love you."
Yes.
This is the line where you say, "I'm happy to get your letters even in Sanskrit."
Yes.
Commenting on his handwriting, I guess. You also say, I worry about you all the time."
I did.
And you did worry, correct?
It's a scary place.
Here you say, "I would not have changed the fact that you and I were together."
I would not change the fact that you and I were together, and I continue, but certainly all else.
Okay. Will you read this line right here?
Do not fear my loss, not ever. I have always loved you and always will. I think of you all the time.
I'm not going to ask you to read this out loud, but will you just read this part right here and get an understanding of that context?
Okay. There's a quote from a book.
Okay, you quoted a book there, correct?
Yes.
Will you read the quote that you sent to him that I've highlighted here?
I know that I could better abandon friends, country, everything, than live without you. I could change my name and live in the remotest part of Europe, in poverty or obscurity. I could bear that very well, but to be parted with you, I cannot bear.
Okay. And you signed it how?
Love you, your girl.
Your girl, correct? And what was the date of this letter that you wrote?
January 13th, 2010.
Okay. After you wrote this letter, you were interviewed by Detectives Robinson and Whitney, were you not?
I believe so.
In Texas. And that interview took place on or about October 11th of 2010?
Yes.
You don't have to read this out loud, but please read this, and you can look to the page before if you need to understand what's going on here. Okay, and in relation, or in regard to your relationship with the defendant when you were interviewed by the detectives on this date, again, this date took place after your letter, correct? What did you tell them about your relationship with the defendant?
Can I stop you for just a minute? Counsel, will you approach? Are you counsel for Ms. Willis?
It's best to take a break for a minute.
Okay. Let's take our morning recess, ladies and gentlemen. Please keep in mind my admonition to you. Don't discuss any subject of the trial amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Don't form or express any opinion about the case. Do no research on your own. Avoid media coverage. Court's in recess.
All rise.
Thank you. Please be seated. For the record, I asked to speak to counsel. The witness is being impeached with inconsistent statements, which I think is appropriate, but when those statements are made to a peace officer, they may give rise to criminal liability. And I need you to check on how to deal with that. Ms. Willis's counsel is present and can advise her about her Fifth Amendment privilege. We'll be in recess. Let me know when you're ready.
All